My name's Tom Tarantino, and in addition to being a veteran of the Iraq War, I spent 10 years serving in the Army in various capacities. I enlisted in 1997. I also deployed to Bosnia in 2000. In 2007, I left the Army as a captain. Now I work as a legislative associate for Iraq and Afghanistan Veterans of America in their Washington, D.C. office. When we enter service, shave your head, they give you all the same clothes, and they say all the things that you identified with are now all secondary to, in my case, Army green. You know, you were black, you were white, you were Asian, you were a Muslim, you were a Buddhist, you were a Catholic. Now you're all soldiers, and that comes before everything. And so you're instilled with this sense of community while you're in service. But then you leave service. Only 10% of the population are veterans. Less than 1% of the population are veterans of Iraq and Afghanistan. So when you leave the service, or in the case of the National Guard and the Reserves, you leave your deployment, you might be the only person around you that has ever gone to war in this recent conflict. And so we can use technology like our social network, like IAVA.org, like the new GI Bill website, to recreate that community and connect veterans not just with us so that we can go, yell at people on Capitol Hill, but with each other, so that they can talk, so that if someone's having a problem, they can jump on the website, they can get in the forum. There's going to be 20, 30 guys that are online right now that can help them. And that's really what it's about. And that's really what IAVA is striving to do, and how we're striving to leverage technology to help veterans recover going back from being warrior to citizen. Every year our priorities shift based on things that are facing people most immediately. I think you have the longer-term issues like the fight for benefits and for adequate health care. The VA provides excellent health care. The DoD provides excellent health care, but there's very little transition between the two. Moving from the Department of Defense, being in the military, and then moving to the Department of Veterans Affairs, being a veteran, that transition is muddled. The two organizations do not talk to each other. So we've been fighting to make sure that the veterans of Iraq and Afghanistan who are eligible for 5 years of free health care enroll in VA health care and are able to get the care they need. We're trying this year to help simplify the disability claims process. Right now, it takes a very long time to file a disability claim with the Department of Veterans Affairs. Because right now, veterans of Iraq and Afghanistan are working under a disability system that was outdated in some cases 20 or 30 years before they were ever born. This is going to be a huge push next year, building on the victories over the last year, being the GI Bill, mandatory face-to-face mental health counseling for everybody coming home from Iraq and Afghanistan, and most recently something called advance appropriations. And that's funding the VA healthcare system 1 year in advance. That is probably one of the most significant things that this veterans community as a whole has done since the first GI Bill. This is important because the federal budget is late every year. It's late on an average of 2 or 3 months, 19 out of the last 20 years. Well, the VA is different. If the Department of Justice is late, they cut back, people don't work overtime. At the worst case, they shut down some offices. But if the VA doesn't have money, they have to shut down hospitals. So in order to prevent that from happening, in order to keep patients from being kicked out in the street, they have to ration care throughout the year. By funding them 1 year in advance, they don't have to do that. They can use their budget to the fullest extent and ensure that veterans get the highest quality care possible. Technology is central to everything we do. IAVA is a little bit different than most veterans organizations. We're not a service organization like the American Legion or the VFW, where they have service providers and they have service officers who physically help veterans through their claims. IAVA reflects the change in communications that this generation of warriors uses. Something around 80% of veterans of Iraq and Afghanistan are under the age of 30. And so that means this is a population of men and women who grew up using technology. They were instant messaging in junior high school. They, had cell phones before they had driver's licenses. And so this generation knows how to communicate online, using gadgets, using technology. And that's really where IAVA was born. It was born out from a small group of dedicated veterans coming home and trying to bring issues that soldiers and service members were facing into the American public eye. And it was born in this technology media. It sort of grew up on Capitol Hill. And then as we progress, we're going to live on through our members, continuing to innovate, continuing to use technology to push the boundaries of how advocacy and communication can go. Before the internet sort of took over the information realm, the talking points that everyone talked about were generated primarily by what came out in the daily news. Well, now what comes out in the daily news is generated by what the people are talking about. And, I mean, you look at the effect of Twitter on the protests in Iran. You look at how, IAVA has leveraged Twitter to talk about what we're doing in real time to our members so that they can provide feedback for us and let us know if what we're doing is right, if what we're doing is screwed up. If I'm at a press conference and I'm live tweeting a testimony, I can have members interact with me directly. And in some cases, they could tell me, hey, why don't you ask the secretary this, or have they talked about that? And so, just using, not necessarily, and I use Twitter as an example, but all the social networking platform allows us to react to things using technology and using social media within a matter of hours, where in many cases it would take days for organizations to rally their base and start affecting change. The concept of email. And it's not just your sort of your dumb pipe email where it's through Outlook and it's fire and forget. We can use tracked email through a service where we can format a message, send it out, and then get feedback not just on open rates, look rates, how many times it's been forwarded. We can put widgets and mechanisms in the email that would allow people to directly call their congressional representatives or sign a petition or have some sort of interactive links. And we can get all that data in real time. Whereas the reaction of a lot of other organizations is 4 or 5 days because it's based on the mail cycle. We can do that in the matter of an hour. And that's absolutely revolutionized the way advocacy is done because the world now moves at that speed. And there are organizations, I think a lot of the other veterans organizations are now coming online with those systems. But a lot of older veterans and previous generations that don't use technology aren't on that train, and that makes it difficult. The world communicates differently now. No one asks, why is reading important? Because everyone knows reading is important, because that's what you have to do to survive. If you don't read the street sign or you don't read the traffic sign, you might get hit by a bus. And it's the same thing with digital education and technology. This is how the world communicates. We have this mantra in the office, and it's innovate or die. The world changes, communications change. This generation and the next generation are constantly changing the way they interact with each other. So if you don't innovate and you don't change with it, you're going to die. And that's how we look at our strategy for using technology. It's innovate or die. If you're a civilian and you're interested, we have about 120,000 civilian supporters that keep up with IAVA, that track our issues, that call their representatives when they feel passionate about an issue, that attend our events and are engaged, because these issues are really about everybody. And so it's not just about engaging the vets, it's about engaging all the people who make up that veteran's life. The veteran might not want to seek help, but his buddy, he can't go out with that guy anymore because he's just having so many problems. He might be paying attention. If he's paying attention, he can help his buddy get the help he needs. Soon we're going to start rolling up everything into IAVA.org and make it more of a central hub for all the things, our social network, our specific outreach campaigns, and that's something we're doing right now. We're going to kind of change the nature, make it much more dynamic. One of the things that IAVA is very successful doing is we try to bring veterans issues into the popular culture, because it's not just about the soldier or the veteran. It's about their parents, their friends, their family members. It's about this concept of community. The military instills community in their members, but the military also is inseparable from the community as a whole.